I was halfway through a quiet morning at a Florida beach resort, watching the waves roll in, when my phone buzzed on the small plastic table. It was supposed to be my first real vacation in 6 years. Ever since my husband passed away, I had poured every ounce of my energy into keeping our independent bookstore running. I was 62, tired, and deeply in need of this week of silence. But the caller ID flashed my bank's name, and my stomach immediately tightened. I picked up, pressing the phone to my ear against the ocean breeze. Diane Arthur. My local bank manager sounded unusually tense. I sat up straight, brushing sand off my legs. Arthur, is something wrong with the business account? I'm holding a commercial refinance application for your bookstore property, he replied, his voice dropping to a low hush. A cash-out loan for $200,000. Your daughter Chloe is sitting in the lobby right now. She brought in the paperwork, complete with your signature and a power of attorney. The warm Florida sun suddenly felt freezing cold against my skin. My grip on the phone tightened. Arthur. I am sitting on a beach 1,000 miles away. I haven't signed a single loan document, and I certainly never gave Chloe power of attorney. A heavy, suffocating silence hung on the line. I know you didn't, Arthur finally breathed, because I flagged the application the moment it crossed my desk. Chloe thought she had everything perfectly aligned to bypass our system, but she made a massive mistake. I stood up, my heart pounding a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. What kind of mistake? I've been your banker for 20 years, Diane Arthur muttered. I know your file inside and out. And when I looked closely at the signature on this application, I found one shocking detail that stopped the entire process dead in its tracks. I paced the wooden deck of my beachfront rental, the ocean entirely forgotten. Tell me exactly what you found, Arthur. Your signature on the loan application is a perfect trace. Arthur explained, his tone laced with disbelief. Too perfect. It matches a commercial lease agreement you signed back in 2014. I know this because on that specific day, you were rushing to get to a doctor's appointment. You accidentally spelled your middle name Marie as Maire. We laughed about it, but we filed it anyway. I closed my eyes. The memory clicked into place. I kept a copy of that old, flawed lease in the bottom drawer of my home office desk. Chloe had a key to my house. She had rummaged through my files, found a signature she thought looked official, and traced it verbatim, including the typo. She traced my mistake. I murmured, a cold clarity settling over my mind. Exactly, Arthur confirmed. No one spells their own name wrong twice a decade apart on a federal document. The application is completely void. The funds are frozen. What do you want me to do? I can have security escort her out. No, I replied firmly. Don't alert her. Tell her the application requires a mandatory 3-day processing hold for standard verification. Let her walk out of that bank thinking she won. Diane, this is serious fraud. Are you sure? I am entirely sure. I stated, my voice steady. Void the file internally. Secure my accounts. But do not make a scene. I will handle my daughter myself. I ended the call and walked straight into the bedroom. There was no time for tears. And frankly, I didn't have any left to give. My daughter was trying to steal the business my husband and I had built with our bare hands. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and started throwing my clothes inside. My vacation was over. It was time to clean house. By the time my flight touched down in our Midwestern city, it was late afternoon. I didn't bother going home to unpack. I hailed a cab and gave the driver the address to Lawson's Books. The bell chimed cheerfully as I pushed open the heavy glass door, but the sight inside made my blood boil. The warm, inviting aisles of mahogany shelves had been pushed aside. In the center of the store stood Chloe and her husband Mark. They were holding color swatches, gesturing wildly toward the antique brick wall, while two painters taped the baseboards. "We'll go with the stark white," Chloe instructed a painter, her voice dripping with an unearned authority. "We need to modernize. The whole cozy, dusty vibe is dead. We're turning that corner into a minimalist coffee bar." Mark nodded in agreement, scrolling on his tablet. "Once the 200 grand clears on Friday, we'll order the new espresso machines. Your mom will be thrilled when she gets back." I stood near the entrance, a shadow by the front display, just watching them. They were already spending the money they thought they had stolen from me. They had zero respect for the legacy of the store, zero respect for me, and zero hesitation about liquidating my retirement to fund their modern aesthetics. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just felt a profound, chilling detachment. I had spent years giving Chloe everything she asked for: down payments, car loans, free rent at a property I owned. I thought I was helping her get on her feet. Instead, I had raised a parasite. I took a slow, deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked down the center aisle. The floorboards creaked under my boots. Mark looked up first, his tablet slipping slightly in his hands. "Diane." Chloe spun around, dropping the paint swatches, her face drained of color in an instant. Mom Chloe stammered, taking a quick step back. "What are you doing here? You aren't supposed to be back until Sunday." "I decided I had enough, son," I replied, keeping my voice entirely flat. I looked at the two painters holding rolls of blue tape. "Pack up your things, gentlemen. There will be no remodeling today or ever." The painters exchanged a confused glance, but immediately started gathering their tools. "Wait! No!" Chloe stepped forward, trying to force a bright, controlling smile. "Mom, you're just tired from your flight. Mark and I are handling this. You need to rest. We're upgrading the store to increase foot traffic." "With whose money?" I asked, holding her gaze. Chloe blinked, her smile faltering. We have an investor lined up." "Really?" I tilted my head. "Because Arthur at the bank told me your investor was a forged piece of paper with my misspelled middle name on it." The silence that hit the room was absolute. Mark took a sudden step away from his wife, his eyes darting toward the exit. Chloe's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I didn't wait for her to formulate a lie. I walked directly to the front counter, picked up her designer purse, and unzipped it. "Hey, you can't do that!" Chloe finally snapped, reaching for the bag. I pulled out the heavy brass key ring that held the master keys to the store. I dropped her purse onto the floor and slipped the keys into my own pocket. "You are no longer an employee here, Chloe," I stated, turning to face her. "You are no longer a manager. You will not step foot in this building again without my express permission. Now leave, both of you." "You can't just fire me!" Chloe shrieked, her facade crumbling into pure entitlement. "I'm your daughter. I have rights to this family business. You have nothing." I corrected quietly. "Get out." After watching Chloe and Mark storm out of the store, I locked the front door, flipped the sign to closed, and walked back to my office. The small room smelled of old paper and dust, a comforting scent that grounded me. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. Stopping the fraudulent loan was only the first step. If Chloe had the audacity to forge a mortgage document, I needed to know exactly what else she had been doing behind my back. I logged into the store's accounting software and pulled up the bank statements for the last 6 months. What I found made me sick to my stomach. It wasn't a single, massive theft. It was a slow, calculated bleed. There were dozens of small, unauthorized transfers labeled as petty cash or vendor supplies. A closer look revealed they were being routed straight to Mark's personal credit card. She had been siphoning off my profits to pay for their dinners, their designer clothes, and their weekend getaways. She treated my business like her personal ATM. My hands trembled not out of sadness, but out of pure, unadulterated anger. I had ignored the red flags for years, writing off her expensive lifestyle as Mark having a good quarter at his sales job. I didn't call her to demand an explanation. Explanations were useless now. Instead, I clicked on the user management portal for my banking app. With 3 deliberate clicks, I revoked Chloe's status as an authorized user on the business account. Then I moved to my personal accounts. I canceled the emergency credit card I had given her years ago. I changed every password, every security question, and every recovery email. A few minutes later, my phone pinged with a notification from my credit card app. Transaction declined $450 at Nordstrom. A small, grim smile crossed my face. The reality of her actions was finally catching up to her. I left the bookstore an hour later and drove across town to the charming 2-bedroom house nestled in a quiet suburb. It was the house Chloe and Mark lived in. It was also the house I bought entirely with cash 4 years ago, keeping the deed solely in my name, letting them live there rent-free so they could save for their future. I bypassed the doorbell and unlocked the front door with my own key. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I heard Chloe yelling in the kitchen. It declined. The cashier looked at me like I was a beggar. Mark. She must have cut off the card. I walked into the kitchen, dropping my keys onto the granite counter with a loud clatter. They both spun around, eyes wide. Yes, Chloe. I cut off the card. I confirmed, pulling out a chair and sitting down at their dining table. I also removed you from the business accounts. The free ride is officially over. Chloe's face flushed a deep, angry red. How dare you barge in here? This is our home. You are completely overreacting. That loan was for the good of the family. You're getting old, Mom. You're losing your grip on the business, and I was just trying to secure our future. I looked at her amazed at the sheer audacity. She wasn't sorry she tried to steal. She was only angry she got caught. You tried to put a $200,000 lien on my life's work, I noted, keeping my voice dangerously calm. And you've been stealing thousands from the register to pay for your clothes. Mark puffed out his chest, stepping forward. Listen. Diane Chloe might have been a little aggressive, but she's right. You need help managing your assets. You can't just cut us off. We rely on that income. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper I had printed at the store. I slid the paper across the smooth wooden table. Mark hesitated, then picked it up. His eyes scanned the document and his jaw practically unhinged. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "That is a standard 30-day notice to vacate," I explained, folding my hands in my lap. "I called a realtor on my drive over here. I am putting this house on the market next week. You have until the end of the month to pack your things and find a new place to live." Chloe snatched the paper from Mark's hands, her eyes scanning the bold print. "You can't do this. This is my home. Where are we supposed to go?" "You are adults," I answered simply. "You will figure it out. You can use the savings you supposedly built up while living here rent-free for the last 4 years. I knew exactly what I was doing. They had no savings. They had spent every dime they made, plus everything they stole from me, on keeping up appearances. Mom, please." Chloe's tone shifted abruptly from rage to a desperate whining pitch. She tried to reach across the table to grab my hand, but I pulled it back. "You can't put us on the street. We're family." "Family doesn't forge signatures, Chloe," I replied, standing up. "Family doesn't treat their mother like a bank to be robbed. You made a choice to view me as a resource instead of a parent. Now the resource is empty." "This is insane," Mark shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "You are ruining our lives over a misunderstanding." "No, Mark," I corrected, walking toward the hallway. "I am protecting my life from 2 predators. I expect the house to be spotless when I bring the realtor through on Tuesday." Before I reached the front door, I stopped and turned back. Chloe was leaning against the counter, breathing heavily, while Mark paced the floor, muttering under his breath. "One more thing," I announced. They both looked up. I held out my hand, palm up. "The keys to the SUV, Mark. Hand them over." Mark froze. "Excuse me, I need that car for work." "That car is registered in my name and I pay the insurance," I reminded him. "I bought it so my daughter would have a safe vehicle. Since my daughter is currently trying to defraud me, the perks are revoked. Keys, now." Mark looked at Chloe, waiting for her to intervene, but she was too busy staring at the eviction notice. Realizing he was on his own, Mark's bravado shattered. "Diane, come on." He pleaded, his voice thin and reedy. "If I don't have a car, I can't get to my client meetings. I'll lose my job." "Then you better download a rideshare app," I replied, not moving my hand. "Or I can report the vehicle as stolen. Your choice." Mark's shoulders slumped. He dug into his pocket, pulled out the heavy key fob, and dropped it into my waiting hand. Without another word, I walked out the front door, pressing the unlock button on the fob. The silver SUV beeped in the driveway. I climbed into the driver's seat, adjusted the mirrors, and backed out into the street. I left my old sedan parked in their driveway. They could figure out how to jumpstart it if they really needed to go somewhere. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Chloe was standing on the front porch, her arms crossed, watching me leave. For the first time in her life, she had no leverage. The safety net was completely gone. By the next morning, the phone calls started. Chloe had spent the entire night calling my sister, my cousins, and anyone else who would listen, spinning a frantic tale. She claimed I was suffering from a mental breakdown, that I had violently kicked her out on the street, and that I was hoarding the family money out of spite. My sister called me right as I was opening the bookstore. "Diane, what on earth is going on?" she asked, sounding deeply concerned. "Chloe is hysterical. She says you took their car and are making them homeless." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get defensive. Chloe forged my signature on a commercial loan application to pull $200,000 out of my bookstore. She has also been stealing from my register. I cut her off, took back the car I own, and am selling the house I own. That is the entire story. My sister fell silent. She forged your signature." "Yes. If you feel bad for her, you are more than welcome to let her and Mark move into your guest room." "Oh. No, I couldn't possibly do that." My sister backpedaled instantly. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in years. Around noon, the front door of the bookstore swung open and Chloe marched in. She looked exhausted, her hair messy, her designer clothes rumpled. "You told Aunt Sarah I'm a thief," Chloe yelled, not caring about the two customers browsing nearby. I walked out from behind the counter, stopping a few feet from her. "Because you are. And if you don't leave my store this second, I will have you trespassed. You have 30 days to vacate the house. Do not waste that time throwing tantrums in my place of business." She stared at me, searching my face for the mother she used to manipulate. She found nothing but a brick wall. 4 months have passed since I returned from that interrupted beach trip. The quiet suburb house sold faster than I anticipated. I took the cash and moved it into a secure, high-yield trust that Chloe cannot touch, no matter how many signatures she tries to trace. Chloe and Mark had to scramble. Without my bank accounts to drain Mark's modest salary couldn't support their lifestyle. They ended up renting a cramped second-floor apartment on the edge of town. From what I hear through the family grapevine, the stress of actually having to pay their own bills has caused massive friction between them. My sister recently let it slip that Chloe has been selling off her beloved designer handbags on the internet just to make her half of the rent. Mark blames Chloe for getting greedy. Chloe blames Mark for not earning enough. It is a miserable situation of their own making. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel guilty about it. I hired a brilliant young woman named Sarah to manage the bookstore. She actually loves books, respects the customers, and doesn't try to turn my husband's legacy into a sterile, minimalist coffee shop. The store is thriving, the ledgers are completely clean, and the air inside feels entirely different. In my back office, I did make one small, decorative change. I framed a copy of that voided loan application, the one with the misspelled MAIRE signature, and hung it right above my desk. It isn't a badge of sorrow. It's a daily reminder of the bullet I dodged, and the strength I finally found to say, enough. I stand by the front window, holding a warm cup of tea, watching the morning commuters rush past on the sidewalk. I didn't need to hire a lawyer. I didn't need to drag my daughter through the mud in a courtroom. I simply closed my purse, locked my doors, and enforced the boundaries I should have set decades ago. When you stop feeding a parasite, it eventually falls off. I am 62 years old, my business is safe, and my future belongs entirely to me. And tomorrow I am booking another flight to Florida. This time, I'm leaving my phone at home. What would you do if your own child tried to steal your life's work behind your back? Have you ever had to draw a hard financial line with a toxic family member? Let me know how you handled it in the comments below. I read every single one. If my story gave you the courage to stand up for yourself, protect your peace, and guard your hard-earned assets, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It helps the channel grow and brings more stories of resilience straight to your feed. Stay strong, protect your boundaries, and I'll see you in the next video.